I hope.
Yeah, that was far and away the
We're
leader.
live, Kevin. And thanks to Carson Wentz throwing another god-awful interception, the Titans get their third overtime win of the season in Indianapolis, sending the Colts to 3-5, while the Titans advanced to 6-2. It didn't come without a hefty price for the Titans, though, Trevin. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but you just watched the replay of the Carson Wentz interception in the end zone for a pick six. What'd you think of that and this final interception that he threw?
Amazing. He never, every game, I think, what was it? That old Patriots linebacker had said, you just got to wait for Wentz to make it.
Teddy Bruschi,
that's what it was. So you just got to wait for him to make a mistake because it's going to happen at some point and it's going to be terrible for him. And holy crap, that amazing. He did that little pump fake to the ground. I think he probably realized that if it's a intentional grounding, it's going to be a safety. So he pump faked just the ground in front of his feet first. And then he tries backtracking farther, switches hands, and then kind of shovel pass, throws it with his left hand right to him for a pick six.
It was an impressive play by that DB. Just perfect timing. They hopped right in there in front of the O lineman that was the ball was headed towards, and just 2 yards, and they're in the end zone.
Yeah,
but
then of course they do get the ball back. A safety probably would have ended the game, so it ended up actually saving him to get the ball back, and he does his patented underthrow a receiver and get a pass interference penalty to get a touchdown and send it to overtime and throws another interception. So real day for Wentz.
That pass interference was on Kevin Byard, who was the one who made the interception in overtime, and he said after that he was just bound and determined he was going to make a play to save the game, and by God, he did it. Wentz gave him another chance in overtime. So good for him to get a little redemption. Good, huge win for the Titans. Basically, unless they really stumble down the stretch, this is going to go a long way towards locking up the division because they're 3 games ahead in the loss column. And then they also have the tiebreaker with 2 head-to-head wins. And they're probably going to go 6-0 in the division unless they have a catastrophic game against the Texans or the Jags. So a lot of tiebreakers working in their favor.
To touch on the Wentz thing a little bit more, the Colts, there's no reason to play him the rest of the year for the Colts because they lose a first-round pick if he plays 75% of the snaps or something for the season.
I think that's the number, yeah.
And there's really not a lot to play for, and he's not really helping you win too much anyway. So I'd say see what you got in Ellinger because you don't want to give up a first-round pick for Wentz.
What's crazy, though, is they're only 1 game out of the playoffs right now. The Chargers are the 7th seed currently at 4-3, and the Colts are 3-5. So they've had some tough games, and they're probably not that far out of it. But I agree, at some point, if they get much more out of it, they definitely have to pull the plug and save that first-round pick.
Yeah. He's hilarious. Hilarious to watch.
He's actually been decent from a fantasy and to a certain extent. I think he only had 1 interception in real life before.
Yeah, but there was another shovel pass that got called a fumble. That was an interception earlier in the year. So and he had a couple dropped interceptions. It just seems like he's trying to throw interceptions all the time, and a lot of times the defense just won't give it to him.
Like he's trying to. He's number 12 in scoring for fantasy points so far this year. Of course, he has played 1 more game than some of the other quarterbacks, but he's been decent from a fantasy perspective.
If you've got the stones to start Wentz on your fantasy team, you're a bigger man than me.
He's number 16 on a per game basis, so not quite as good, but still. It's been serviceable, especially in Superflex leagues, Trevin. Maybe the Sam Ehlinger can be the next Mike White, though. Our stat of the week, Mike White threw for 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, and caught a 2-point conversion pass on the go-ahead score to join. Do you know who has the only players since 1950 to throw for 400 or more yards in their first career start? 1 other player.
Oh. Burrow was throwing a lot last year. It's not Burrow, is it, when he first came in?
It was not Burrow.
Oh, like an Andrew Luck or a Peyton Manning?
Nope, I don't think you're going to guess it. You want to know who it is?
Yeah, who is it?
Cam Newton.
Oh, wow, yeah, with Steve Smith right away. They came in bombing it.
Yep, Cam Newton threw for over 400 in his first game. Burrow threw for 193 last year against the Chargers in his first game, so he almost got halfway there.
Pretty close.
Here's another question for you. Mike White overcame 2 early interceptions and also became the Jets' first 400-yard passer since.
I heard this one somewhere else. Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah. Threw for 481 yards on Christmas Eve 2000. So 327 games between their 2 400-yard passers for the Jets. And Mike White even missed a few snaps in this game to be checked for a neck injury, so a little bit more impressive yet. All that from a backup who was a 5th-round pick of Dallas in 2018 out of Western Kentucky and hadn't thrown an NFL pass until last week.
Wow. Amazing. Especially when you see what Zach Wilson's been able to do there, which hasn't been much. So
yeah,
if I'm a Zach Wilson fan, that didn't make me feel very good. If I'm a Chiefs fan, that didn't make me feel very good. You just burned the 2nd overall pick on him, and you got this guy coming in and doing stuff he can't do.
Yeah, Zach Wilson might be the backup sooner rather than later at this rate. He also did it without Corey Davis, so even more impressive yet.
I mean, it's just that was kind of the flaw in Zach Wilson coming in. He doesn't take that underneath stuff. He's always looking to go deep, and it seems as Mike came in and he threw a lot of stuff underneath. Michael Carter had 14 targets. Jamison Crowder, the slot guy, most of the time had 9 targets, and Ty Johnson, the other running back, had 6 targets. So he's just using that underneath stuff that Zach Wilson seemed to refuse to use.
Yeah, they've actually been peppering those running backs with targets last game against the Patriots, and granted they lost that game 54-13, and so they were throwing a lot, but they had 9 targets for Carter and 6 for Ty Johnson in that game. So those running backs are getting a lot of targets in that offense. And yep. Mike White, of course, started or played most of that game as well after Zach Wilson went out. So Mike White loves the running backs. A lot of value to be had there in that New York Jets backfield for those two going forward, it looks like, as long as White's the starter, Trevin.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially PPR leagues.
Ty Johnson, I believe, was the number 1 running back in week 8. So pretty
was
impressive.
He really? I didn't realize
excuse me. I misspoke. It was Michael Carter
yeah.
was the number 1. Ty Johnson was number 9. So you had 2 top 10 running backs in week 8 from that offense with Mike White slinging it around.
Yeah, if they both keep averaging 10 targets each, there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, Carter had 32 points. Ty Johnson had 19.6. So pretty impressive week for the Jets. And hey, something to cheer about. They got a big win, and Mike White looks pretty solid.
Yeah.
All right, Trevin, shall we hop into the main event? Well, maybe we'll talk about some of the other backup quarterbacks this week.
Oh, you think so? You're saying it like it might be a question, like you didn't put the show sheet together. But yeah, I'm ready.
Let's do it. So for tonight's main event, we have the good, the bad, and the sad. So we'll start off with the good, which is revenge of the backup quarterbacks, Trevin. We mentioned Mike White already. His 28 points, good for number 2 quarterback in week 8. Geno Smith had 22.6 points and was the number 8 quarterback on the week. And Cooper Rush impressed in Sunday Night Football, 18 points, number 12 quarterback on the week. You a believer in any of these guys after these performances?
It's tough to say I'm a believer in any of them, really. But it seems like it's probably Geno Smith's last start. By all accounts, Russell Wilson's going to come back in after their bye week and be able to start again week 10. But he would have been my guy that I can trust the most out of these 3 just because he's a veteran with a lot more experience than the other 2. But I don't know if they're just going to keep letting Mike White throw it 50 times a game or whatever, maybe there is some fantasy value there. How about you?
Yeah, he's the one I think. I'm not optimistic about the long-term value of any of these guys. Like Dak looks like he's going to be back this week as well, so Cooper Rush probably goes back to the bench. Cooper Rush was an undrafted free agent in the 2017 draft out of Central Michigan. And then you have Geno, who looked terrible until his first game this year. He looked all right, and he's just been kind of since, and then has this one decent game.
Play the Jaguars every week, and he might be all right.
Yeah, that makes everybody look good, I think. So I'm not a big believer in either of those two, but Mike White, I mean, it's his 4th year. He hadn't thrown a pass at all, so it's hard to really buy in. But at least, he has maybe a couple more weeks here where he can show a little bit. And I don't think he's going to take this job from Zach Wilson, who they just spent the number 2 pick on.
Yeah.
But at least he can, I don't know, maybe have like a Gardner Minshew type role where he's kind of that fringe. And this is obviously a best case scenario. Like, I think more likely is he just goes back to being a backup for the rest of his career until he gets flushed out of the league. But at least with him, he has a chance to show a little more. And if he can do this again, maybe he catches the eye of some GM somewhere across the league and they give him a shot as in free agency or something. We'll see.
Yeah. They were both on the Cowboys team back in 2018. Is that right? Mike and Cooper? I believe.
I haven't tracked when Mike White left Dallas, but he was there in 2018.
I think Cooper Rush beat him out for the spot there.
Gotcha. The cradle quarterbacks in Dallas.
What is Zach Wilson's injury? I'm not even sure. Is it concussion? So he might be out a couple weeks, maybe?
I thought it was ankle. Let me check quick.
No, I was just seeing if you're hurting at quarterback, Mike might be a way to go. And if they keep this passing volume up, then get you some points and get you through a bye week or something.
Yeah, it says it's his knee. They're hoping he can return to practice by week 10. So he hasn't been placed on the IR, and that's why, because they're hoping he can come back. But it sounds like it's a knee injury.
So, yeah, at least one more week without him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you think he gets his job back?
Oh, man, it'd be – you'd have to really be down on him to take his confidence away like that, I think, and bench him when your team's not going anywhere anyway. Let number 2 guy get some more reps, I think. So he'd have to come in and really make a mess of it before he gets benched, I think.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a PCL issue, so I don't know if he just PCL sprain, 2 to 4 weeks is what they estimated. So yeah, I think there's no chance that Mike White keeps this job when he comes back, but no. It would be pretty funny, and it's a funny way to troll the Zach Wilson believers, and by throwing that out there.
If you're a Jets fan, this just can't feel good. You'd almost wish that Mike had a bad game and you lost it, other than there's somebody can actually do something, and Zach Wilson might be the problem you've had all year.
Yeah, and did against a team that's had a pretty good season, got you a win.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, the number 1 team in the AFC before that game.
Yep.
As far as seeding and records.
All right, Trevin. In not so good news this week, we had COVID start to rear its ugly head and really kind of have an impact potentially on several fantasy players here. So we have Aaron Rodgers, who is unvaccinated and will be out this week after testing positive. We had Saquon Barkley, who I think tested positive yesterday and was placed on the COVID list today, but also had a negative test today. So potentially if he has another negative test, he could appear Sunday, unless I'm missing something there. Have you seen anything to the contrary?
I haven't seen anything new on it, no. I think the protocol is you have to test negative twice, more than 24 hours apart. So maybe they're just waiting on that second test to say anything else.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. So at least there's some hope there for him. And then we also had AJ Green and Noah Fant test positive this week as well, Trevin. So their status for Sunday is also up in the air.
I didn't need any more details on AJ Green or Noah Fant. Are they both in the vaccinated protocol as far as they can still have the option to play again? Have you heard?
I have not seen that either way.
I haven't either. I own them in a couple leagues, so I've been looking at it, but I haven't seen it either.
Yep. So we'll keep an eye on that going into Sunday, Trevin. But
yeah, if you got those guys, be ready to be making some changes here before the week starts.
Yeah, it looks like Fant just needs the 2 negative tests 24 hours apart, so he must be vaccinated. And then let me look up Green quick while you give us all your hot takes on Aaron Rodgers.
No, we kind of talked about it before the season. I wish they would have just told us who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. I mean, it's not – I don't know why it's any more different than past injuries that we know everything about these guys, because things like this where it did impact whether Rodgers could test out or just he's out a game. This is my worry when I was kind of drafting players in redraft leagues this year. But, yeah, looks like Rodgers was trying to be sly as far as his vaccination status, or thought he was pretty clever by when he was asked a direct question back in August if he's vaccinated. He said he's immunized or whatever the hell he said. So
Immunized.
immunized.
Is English
What?
your second language?
What an idiot. I just can't believe. Like, of course, we're asking if you've had the vaccine, but apparently he was trying some home remedy stuff to get some antibodies or something. So
my favorite
he's
thing
out
was that he said he wouldn't judge his teammates who chose not to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Maybe because you chose not to also, Aaron.
Just unbelievable. So it's, he obviously knew what he should be doing when he's saying stuff like that, but
yeah,
whatever. We'll see. That might be some penalties coming down on the Packers if they haven't been following all the regulations as far as unvaccinated players. So be interested to see what they actually penalize them with.
Yeah, it sucks because as we're looking forward to seeing them play Kansas City this week, should have been a really good matchup, and now we get to see instead Jordan Love, which I guess will have some fantasy intrigue, but probably not great for these Packers weapons, Trevor.
No, if you got Devontae Adams, I'm not super excited about his prospects this week anymore, but yeah, it could shake some things up for what we know about Jordan Love, and if he has a good game, maybe look for trading him, and if he doesn't have a good game, it's just might be time to cut him.
Yeah, and I almost said potentially negative impact on the Chiefs from a fantasy perspective here too, because they may win this going away, but they haven't been able to beat anybody going away this season. So they struggled to beat Daniel Jones and the Giants this past week, and we'll see what they look like against an Aaron Rodgers-less Green Bay, but they probably need the opportunity to run it up if they can and get right. And I can't see Andy Reid calling off the dogs if they do get out ahead by too much.
What an awesome 2-minute drill for the Giants at the end of that game. I really thought they're going to pull that off the way they handled that situation.
You have Daniel Jones in a super flex league as your number 2 quarterback, so you've been a big believer. Are you still all in on Danny?
It's hurt that he hasn't had the rushing that he had at the beginning of the year. I was looking at his rushing totals. He's kind of getting that 60 yards a game the first 2 or 3 games until he had that injury, and he's just getting nothing from rushing anymore. So it's really hurting his fantasy impact, and things aren't looking great in Danny Dimes land.
Yeah, and all his receivers getting hurt doesn't help, and Saquon's out. So hopefully when Saquon comes back, he can at least give us some fantasy production in that offense. But Danny is not long for a starting job, I think.
I don't think so either. He's been an okay fantasy quarterback this year for the whole year, but you got to have some wins at some point, or they're going to have a high draft pick and probably take a quarterback and be the end of his starting career. Especially
if Gettleman's gone after this year.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give Gettleman another shot to draft another quarterback.
AJ Green, as best as I could tell, looks like maybe they just on these news blurbs say he has to have 2 negative tests. So they don't come out and say that he is, but that'd be the requirement if he was. So we'll see. Keep an eye on if you're kind of on AJ Green. And if he's out this week, maybe Christian Kirk gets a little bit of a bump.
Rondale Moore, because Nuke is also still battling his hamstring injury that kind of limited him last Thursday. So they might be down Nuke and AJ Green this week.
Yeah, and it's been kind of hard to tell who's going to be the guy in that Cardinals passing offense so far this season, with kind of the up and down of Hopkins and AJ Green, and you've had good weeks for Kirk, and you've had Rondale have some spike weeks, but nobody's really been that consistent. So
it's worked really good for the Cardinals as a team, but it's a nightmare for fantasy as far as trying to pick out who's going to have a big week, because they're really spreading it around and run a lot of 4 receiver sets.
Yep. All right, Trevin. I hate this.
One more thing on Rodgers, though. I'm done dicking with him, but I think he's able to come back just next Sunday if he is asymptomatic. So it's really right on the edge of missing 2 weeks here.
Yeah, I thought it was the day before, but either way, he won't have much prep time.
Yeah.
But at this point in his career, I don't know how much prep he really needs.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the prep, but if he's not available for the game, he might be out 2 weeks here.
Yeah, certainly a real life and a fantasy impact from his decision to not get vaccinated. All right, Trevin. Sadly, the Titans win cost them Derrick Henry, who suffered a Jones fracture. Long live King Henry. He had surgery on Tuesday, expected to miss 6 to 10 weeks. So kind of an interesting range there, which would put his return somewhere between week 15 on the early side and potentially the divisional round of the playoffs with the expanded season. So sounds like there is at least optimism he could be back for the stretch run or the playoffs, but a big loss for fantasy owners everywhere as he was dominating this year, as we talked extensively about last week.
Yeah, it's too bad. We were talking all about how he could be the first running back to have the most yards and touchdowns in 3 seasons in a row, and he's well on his way. I think he's about 300 yards ahead of anybody else's rushing yards, and I think almost doubled up anybody's closest touchdowns. So he was just doing unheard of things this year, and it's too bad. He was just a guy that was never hurt, and now could really limit him the rest of the season here. Of course, you search all the Twitter doctors whenever something like this happens, and people are saying everything they know about different injuries, and it sounds like this one's a big one for the risk of injuring it again really gets a lot smaller that between that 6 to 10 week range. So hopefully the Titans can make it into the playoffs and they don't have to use him and they can save him till that divisional round if that's what it takes, and he can come back strong for the playoffs.
Yeah, I certainly expect that'll be their strong desire to do that if at all possible, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. He's been incredibly reliable and available over his career, especially for the type of workload and the number of carries he gets, Trevin, and this is really the first time we've seen it. He is getting up there a little bit in age, so hopefully it's not a sign of things to come, but very sad that he won't get a chance to continue his historic pace that he was on, and he was looking at, being an MVP candidate potentially. I mean, the Titans have the best record in the AFC, and now that and his back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons are both out the window. So it's very sad as a Titans fan and just as a fan of watching him play in general. And really sucks for fantasy owners. I mean, they signed Adrian Peterson here. What do you think about him the rest of this year?
I don't think you can expect him to do what Derrick Henry's been doing. I think
that's a bold statement.
Yeah,
about that?
I mean, the crazy thing with Henry is, of course, the yards and the touchdowns, but just the volume that he can handle and still be efficient and produce big yardage games, just not like any but other running back can do in the league right now. So they're not gonna be able to give the volume like that to anybody else or even a group of people and still have somebody as strong as anywhere close to what Henry's doing. So whoever they bring in, I know they brought in Peterson. Is it Evans still there?
Darrington Evans is on the IR for the second time this year, so he's out for the season. So they're down to Jeremy McNichols as their other option in this backfield.
Yeah, who's more of a receiving back anyway. So hopefully they can make the difference up with throwing some more volume to A.J. Brown, because he has been on a tear and always efficient, and maybe he can turn in some more of those targets to catches and having some more big weeks in a row here.
Yeah, I think he and Tannehill are probably the biggest beneficiaries of this bad news, just because I think they're going to have to throw the ball more to try to win some games. And, I think Peterson can be serviceable, like as a running back too, just if he gets the volume in this offense. I think it'll take him a week or two to ramp up, but he played all 16 games for the Lions last year, had 600 rushing yards on 156 carries for a 3.9 yard per carry average, had 7 touchdowns. Also chipped in 12 catches for 100 yards in the receiving game. So somehow at 35, he was still, kind of a not someone you wanted to rely on, but somebody who could provide some depth on your roster. And I don't see any reason he couldn't do that in this Titans offense, which is significantly better than the Lions were last year. So if you went out and got him on your waiver wire this week, I think you should feel okay about it, but maybe not count on him this week. But going forward, I think that he'll have some flex appeal.
Yeah. As a Titans fan, I know we're going to get into some more trade things later on, but were you hoping they got anybody else besides Peterson, or is there anybody else you were looking for?
Not really. I just don't know who's going to, the only one that really made some sense to me was potentially Melvin Gordon if the Broncos wanted to give Javonte the lead back role and save some salary. And, Gordon's kind of at the twilight of his time there probably anyway. And they traded Von Miller this week, so it looks like maybe Elway's given up a little bit on this season despite their 4-4 record. So, but I wasn't going to be super excited about him, and for the price, I mean, Peterson's probably going to be fine. But the thing is, some of the names that people were throwing out there, it's like I saw, of course, people floated AJ Dillon because he's the same size as Derrick Henry and has similar athletic traits, but it's like the Packers just lost Kylan Hill. They weren't giving up AJ Dillon, and Dillon already has a role in that offense anyway. It's like the reason that the teams don't want to give up those guys is because of what just happened to the Titans. Like if your guy goes down, you need somebody. So I didn't think a lot of those that were floated out there were very realistic, to be honest.
No, the only other one I really thought of was Marlon Mack, just because he's kind of made it known that he wasn't looking to stay with the Colts. So I thought maybe the Titans would look for him to get a cheap option.
Yeah, that would have. I just
doesn't have near the physical as Derrick Henry, but could be a guy with some experience you could put in.
The problem with that one is it's the same division with the Colts. They don't want to do anything to help the Titans. So
sure, yeah, but at this point, the Colts can't be thinking the Titans are really a competitor as far as who's going to win the division. I think you got to look past that.
Yeah. Well, you think that? Well, maybe we'll touch on that one later. I'll save it. All right. Anything else on Derrick Henry and the impact here on the Titans?
No. Just to really back to AJ Brown real quick, and the passing offense of this is the volume might increase, but I think passing is a whole lot easier also when you've got 8 guys in the box and they have to be very panicked about every play action with Derrick Henry getting the ball. So hopefully they can keep some of the efficiency up as the volume increases.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they evolve this offense the rest of the year when it's been revolving around Derrick Henry for so long now that he's been the first option, and now they don't have that anymore. So it'll be interesting to see, and maybe not a bad thing for the team as a whole if they can make the playoffs and have a little more diversity that they're comfortable with in this offense and get him back and you're at full strength and you have all these other options and this chemistry that's developed without him and maybe a little more balance. I don't know. Like that, I think that's been something that's kind of held him back in the past in the playoffs is they've been so one-dimensional, and now they're forced to move away from that a little bit. And if they can get Julio healthy, that'll help too. So we'll see. It'll be interesting for sure.
I wish they had more of a warm-up game for this new offense than going against the Rams right away, but hopefully they can figure it out quick.
Their schedule lately has been tough. So obviously we've talked about they beat Buffalo and Kansas City, and then they went to Indianapolis, and now they've got at the Rams and then against New Orleans before it softens up a little bit with a trip to Houston, or a game against Houston. So yeah, they're in a rough stretch here, but at least they're most of the way through it, and we'll see. They really can't complain too much about the schedule with the division they're in.
No, they got some buys coming up with Houston and Jacksonville.
Yeah, so that helps. But, I mean, if you just look at that, they have 2 games against Houston left.
2 more games against Houston.
And 1 against Jacksonville. So if they just win those, they're at 9 wins, and then they just have to win 1 or 2 of their other games, and they're in the playoffs. So
yeah, hopefully that means they can rest Derrick Henry till the playoffs.
Hopefully. For real life purposes, for fantasy purposes, I would plan on that. And if he comes back for your playoff run, just consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Also, long live our other king, Jameis Winston. He's like the king of crab legs, I think. Tore his ACL this week in addition to sustaining MCL damage. Out for the season, Trevin, and favorite Taysom Hill potentially taking over in this offense if he can get back on the field after his concussion, I think it was.
Yeah.
So where are we at on Taysom versus Trevor Simeon, and what does this mean for us? I mean, in other Saints news, they also lost Michael Thomas for the year today, we found out. So rough week for the Saints, losing him and Jameis confirmed, and now you're looking at Alvin Kamara trying to do it all himself, I guess.
Simeon didn't look too bad in Jameis's absence last week. But as far as Jameis goes, he hasn't been huge for fantasy, but they've definitely been winning games. And he's been doing good, and looks like his team really loved him. So it's going to be interesting what they do. I think he's only on a 1-year contract, or has 1 year left on his contract. I'm not sure what decision they're going to make with Jameis going forward.
Yeah, Trevor Simeon was surprisingly. I mean, they beat the Bucs this week, even after Jameis went out. Simeon was 16-29, 159 yards, a touchdown. So more than serviceable. It'll be interesting to see. I assume it'll be Taysom when it comes back. But if Taysom's not effective, they do at least have another option there. So that, I think, will be interesting to watch. I do not like this too much for our boy Alvin Kamara. I don't know. Like, if it's going to be Taysom, I think if I remember right, last year Kamara wasn't that great with.
Well, he didn't get any of those catches as soon as Taysom was in, because Taysom would just run those instead of dropping them off to him. So that's what really hurt his fantasy value.
Yeah, so that's what I'm really nervous about going forward. Is this Taysom Hill actually going to target Alvin Kamara, or is he just going to run it? And if he's going to be the starter, then that really makes me nervous if I'm a Kamara owner for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
So looking last season, let's see. Looks like
Did you know
Taysom
Simeon
played?
Go ahead.
Taysom played weeks 11 through 14, so they played Atlanta, Denver, Atlanta, and Philly. And let's see if I go back to Kamara's last year. Starting with Atlanta, that first Atlanta game, he had 0 targets. Denver, which was that weird game where Kendall Hinton started for them, he had 1 target. Atlanta, again, he had 2 targets. And then finally against Philly, he had 7. So maybe if you want to have a little optimism, you're looking for at that last game against Philly that Taysom started, and hoping that it looks more like that than the other 3. But, man, I'd be nervous.
Yeah. Wouldn't feel good as a Kamara fan. I'd be rooting for Simeon being the starter.
Yep.
Did you know Simeon was the backup there before this game happened? Because I didn't even realize that.
I did not, because I knew Taysom was out, but I didn't realize that Simeon was the 3rd string, I guess.
Yeah.
It looks like Jameis is under contract through 2023, and then he's an unrestricted free agent in 2024. He only, let's see. Look at this, right?
I don't think he has any guaranteed money after this year, but I might be wrong.
I think you're right. Well, I don't know. I'm looking at SpoTrack, and it's weird. Like, it shows 2022 a $1.5 million signing bonus and $1.5 million cap hit and $3 million dead cap, and then a $1.5 million cap hit with a $1.5 million signing bonus for 2023. I wonder if that's just the void years or something like that, because it says he signed a 1-year $5.5 million contract in 2021.
Yeah,
so
I think you're right.
So I think he may be a free agent after this season if I'm looking at this right, but it's kind of confusing on here. But either way, they're going to have a decision to make, and I don't know if it'll be interesting to see if they bring him back, I guess.
Yeah.
I wonder if they try to get Rodgers.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of teams looking for a quarterback next year, it looks like. So there'll be a lot of shifting around, I believe.
Daniel Jones.
Hopefully he can keep a starting spot.
All right, Trevin. Anything else on the Saints situation before we move on?
Nope. I'm sure we'll talk about them a little bit more later on in that topic too.
Yeah. Temper expectations for Kamara, I think, is the biggest takeaway. And I was out. I don't know about you, but I was totally out on Michael Thomas this year, just with how long he was projected to be able to start with. And I never want to draft guys who are on the injured list. And then there was all the questions about the quarterback situation. It's just like total avoid. So that looks like it has panned out. And I'd be fascinated to know if he would be out for the year if they were more competitive, and if Jameis didn't just get hurt as well. I'm not saying he's just making it up, but it'd be interesting to know, like, if
they are competitive though, right? They only have 2 losses. Am I right on that?
You are right, but I don't know.
But I know what you mean as far as the shaky quarterback play. If you have this weird ankle foot injury going on, I don't know if you want to come back to get wrecked with Simeon throwing you across the middle.
They are 5-2, so, and they just beat the Bucs with their backup. But man, if they make the playoffs, I'll be surprised. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't know. They keep winning games, but I still don't believe in Taysom carrying anybody to the playoffs as a starting quarterback.
Me either, and it was just curious timing for that news to come out, I guess, was probably my biggest thought on it.
It is weird. If it would have came out before the trade deadline, maybe they could have done something, but I don't know how much the team knew before. Maybe he was just making it public now. That could have been something they had private too.
Tough to say, but I think there is a lesson there just going forward with guys in a situation like that. Be cautious.
Yeah.
All right, Trevin, we move on from the bad to the sad. Calvin Ridley is taking an indefinite break from football to focus on his mental well-being. He put out a statement on Twitter this week after missing Sunday's game. All I can really say here is I hope he gets everything figured out and can get back on the field if that's what he wants to do and that's what makes him happy going forward. But just a sad situation that whatever he has going on is impacting his life to this degree and taking him away from a game. You got to assume he loves. He's been playing it his whole life and been very successful at it. So, sad situation.
Yeah, for sure. It does make me feel a little bit better that it does seem to be more acceptable now. You got to feel bad for guys in the past that I'm sure weren't super comfortable making a statement like this and stepping away from something that they didn't feel right playing. Because if you're not mentally right for this game, boy, it's a violent game that can really injure you long-term deals. So I'm glad he can come out and say this, and hopefully gets his head right as far as whatever that means for him.
Yeah, so best wishes to Calvin Ridley. As far as the Falcons going forward, we've kind of seen in the couple of games he's missed what that offense looks like without him in it. And I know you picked up Tajay Sharp in the league this week. Are you optimistic about his role going forward?
I'm really not. It was weird last week when Ridley did. He announced he wasn't going to play pretty late on. I don't know when the team knew that either, but so I thought it was going to be a big game for Pitts and for Russell Gage. Would look like he was going to be the primary receiver target, and Gage didn't have a single catch, and I think Pitts only had one or two. I think the Falcons, I'm trying to get the box score pulled up, but I think they only completed 10 passes maybe against the Panthers, something super small like that.
20. And yeah, not only did Gage not have a catch, he didn't even have a target in this game.
Weird.
So,
really weird. So I took a shot on one of the receiving targets to see who steps into the role a little more.
Yeah, Sharp did lead the team tied for the lead in targets with 6 and had 5 catches for 58 yards. So pretty good for him. There are other options, of course. Cordarrelle Patterson continued his hot streak, 5 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown in the receiving game, and then had 9 for 35 on the ground. So he continues to be a key contributor in this offense. Mike Davis also had 5 catches for 22 yards and 44 yards on the ground. And then Kyle Pitts had 6 targets, but only 2 catches in this game. So to me, if I had to guess, it seems like they're probably going to lean on Pitts and Patterson because that's what's been working a lot this season. Yep. But there's opportunity there for a third person in this receiving game, and Sharp has probably as good a chance as any based on their usage, unless something was wrong with Gage in this game.
Yeah, it's super strange because he's had an okay year and had a pretty good year last year. So yeah, might have just been a weird one-off game, but maybe Sharp does take over that next receiving role.
Yeah, the runway is clearing for your boy Gage or for your boy Pitts to have the type of year that you were hoping for.
Boy, before this game was a stinker, but he was on a tear before that. I think through 7 games, he had the most receiving yards of any tight end through history, through 8 games. So he's 1 game behind and has already threw more yards than any tight end has had before. So yeah, he was really exploding before this game.
So yeah, he's played 7 games so far this year and 484 yards on 33 catches, only the 1 touchdown. So if he can start getting in the end zone a little bit, watch out.
It does feel a little wrong that I'm able to put him at tight end because if you watch any highlights, he's just lining up as a receiver and making catches over the top. So it's a kind of a handy little cheat code.
Yeah, I don't know if you happened to see this week.
I did, Dave's.
Yeah, FF_Spaceman, Dave Wright on Twitter. Go follow him if you aren't already. He's been on the show several times, but he tweeted out the tight end inline snap percentage. Pitts is at 26%, so playing either in the slot or out wide most of the time. Mike Gesicki is actually the lowest, though, at 8% in line. So, yeah, as long as Gesicki continues to count tight end, I don't think you should feel too guilty about putting Pitts there, Trevin.
I would like to see some numbers on receivers as far as how many times they line up in line. Because some of the receivers have to be more than 8%, I think, just by watching the game. Sometimes they're in tighter. And so I'd like to see that, Dave.
Yeah. So shout out to Dave for that tidbit for us. Any other takeaways on this Falcons offense as we move forward? And I guess I'm planning on no Ridley the rest of the year, and kind of like what we talked about with Henry, if he comes back, that's a bonus for your team, but I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah. Hopefully they didn't know about Ridley until right before the game time, and that maybe that's the excuse for why they struggled so much this game. The Panthers have an okay defense so far this year, but hopefully they can turn it back around.
Yeah, I think the Panthers' pass defense has actually been pretty solid. I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah, but they were also that super soft schedule for this when they're undefeated the first 3 weeks too.
Sure. Let's see. So they're second lowest in passing yards per game, second to the Bills at 188 yards a game. But to your point, they have faced the Jets, the Saints, the Texans, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Giants before the Falcons this past week. So that certainly helps, but they did make those trades to boost that secondary as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they do the rest of the year, but they've performed well thus far for sure.
Yeah, they seem to be competitive in a very hard division.
Yep. All right, Trevin. One more sad thing. I'll tee it up here, and I'll let you give your thoughts as a Raiders fan. But Henry Ruggs was released by the Raiders and faces felony charges of driving under the influence of alcohol, resulting in death and reckless driving. It came out today that he was driving 156 miles per hour with a blood alcohol content, twice Nevada's legal limit, before his car slammed into the rear of a vehicle that caught fire and trapped a woman inside, a 23-year-old woman named Tina Tinter, on Tuesday morning in Las Vegas, according to prosecutors. So he's looking at potential jail time from these felony charges, and the Raiders quickly released him after this all came out. So really sad situation, but Trevin, I know you've spent a lot of time following this story, given your Raiders fandom, and I'll let you share your thoughts.
I mean, it's a terrible tragedy. It just insane decision to get in his car drunk and then drive 100. Get in your car drunk anytime to drive is bad, and then drive 156 miles an hour. If you look at Google Maps of where this accident happened, it's like a residential highway in Las Vegas, and so it's very dense, houses all around. So many bad decisions were made here to get to that point where it's so easy for anybody to get I don't have to be the one to preach. I mean, everybody is well aware that you should not drive, but it's so easy for any normal person to get a Lyft and Uber. But NFL, of course, is very hard on this because it's a black eye for league for anybody to do it. So it sounds like they have some systems set up in basically every NFL city to have somebody come get you if you haven't had some drinks. And also, it sounds like even get your car. So you don't want to leave your nice car somewhere if you're an NFL player, and bring your car back to your house too. So very easy to not get in this position. And he turned down all that stuff to drive his car drunk and kill somebody. I mean, it just brutal tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. Feel for this lady's family, and certainly Ruggs' girlfriend was in the car, and I know he has a daughter. I think it's the mother of his child, probably.
Yes, it is. And the girlfriend, there actually hasn't been a lot of updates on her, but she is still in the hospital. They haven't really said what her injuries are, but it's serious enough that she's been in the hospital for 2 days now. So yeah, it's terrible for a lot of the families, none worse than the lady that died. But yeah, Ruggs' 1-year-old daughter is probably going to grow up without a dad for a lot of her life here. And the girlfriend, who I'm assuming they were in a relationship still, and she doesn't have her boyfriend and her father of her kid. And they probably thought they were pretty set for life with him being an NFL player, and it's all up in the air now. So it's just, and like I said, nothing's worse than the family of the victim, but it's hard on a lot of families here making this one bad decision.
2 families completely destroyed in an instant with this decision that he made and the result that happened. So incredibly sad. I don't even really want to talk about, I guess, the fantasy impact and what happens for the Raiders going forward here. We can talk about that on another episode. Maybe next week we'll have a little more time to process this and all that. But
not even the football side of it, for winning and losing games, anything like that. But the two things aren't connected. But with Gruden, what happened with him that came out with those offensive messages, and now if you're just a teammate of Ruggs, you got a teammate just killed somebody, and now assuming that you are friends with him. Now you also have, he killed somebody and he's also going to be in jail for a long time. And now you're expected to play a game on Sunday. So tough for all the players. I know Carr had a conference today that he kind of said, he kind of wondered aloud if he could have done something more. So I know I'm sure it's heavy on all the guys that had a relationship with him. So it's brutal. It really did a number on a lot of people here.
And I think it'd be so hard to be in that situation because you think about, if it were, like, for example, if it were you or me that did this, and if I would just think about, like, yeah, my friend made a terrible decision and somebody is dead and his girlfriend is in the hospital and, serious condition and all the implications for for your family, and just, it would suck because your friend made this terrible decision, but also, like, you still care about that person and, want them to learn and grow from this and all that. So just trying to process that all, I would think, would be really hard for a lot of these players on the team that were probably pretty close to him. So you stack that on top of the Gruden thing, like you mentioned, and it's been a hell of a month for the Raiders, and I don't know how you move forward from this. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, yep, terrible tragedy, and a completely avoidable one. It's just, it's not like it was an accident. Ruggs made a lot of bad decisions to get to that point. Yeah,
and unfortunately, it seems like sometimes it takes something like this happening to somebody or you're friends with to get everybody, or even just, like, if you're a fan of the team or an NFL fan in general, to take it a little more seriously and make those good decisions and encourage those around you to make those good decisions, because you think it'll never happen to you or to somebody but the reality is it does, and it's a terrible situation when it happens.
Yep.
All right. So I'm really also sad for you because I know you were a big Ruggs believer, and now you can cheer for him no matter what happens.
Yeah. It's the lowest of the low as far as importance here, but it has been fun to be his biggest cheerleader just because he was doubted on before, and fun to see some progress from him, and it's just done. He's most likely never going to play for anybody again, and definitely not going to play for the Raiders again, and impossible to cheer for somebody that did something like this, even if he does come back for anybody. So my own fandom's way low on the importance level here, but yeah, it sucks to see a guy that you're rooting for make a decision like this.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that is the good, the bad, and the sad this week. Not a fun main event. So let's try to get things back on track a little bit with our pick to click competition. So again, this week we are picking someone from the main slate who will score 15 or more fantasy points and cost $5,000 or less on DraftKings. You get 1 point if you pick someone 4,100 to 5,000, 2 points for someone 3,100 to 4,000, or 3 points for someone that's 3,000 or less. Last week, Brent picked Mike Gesicki, who cost $5,000 and scored 9.8 points, so he fell a little short. Solid pick from Brent. I was kind of surprised he didn't go back to that well this week again, because I think Gesicki is still at that $5,000 price point, and put up a solid total and has had a really good year.
I'd have to double check, Levi, but I think he might be at 5,100 now.
Is he? Okay. Thought it was close, but either way, Trevin, you went with Kenneth Gainwell, who...
Boy, I don't know what the Eagles are doing. They just took away, I don't know if Gainwell's on the doghouse or what, but it looked like he was in line to be the lead back. And then all the carries and the passes went to Boston Scott. And I can't think of the other guy's name, but Gainwell barely got any play this game.
Jordan Howard.
Yes, Jordan Howard out of nowhere.
I think they each had a couple touchdowns, and I think I might have seen that. Did Jordan Howard get put back on the practice squad?
Oh, I might have missed that if he did. But yeah, Boston Scott ended up with 18 fantasy points and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, great job, Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, Philadelphia Eagles running back Jordan Howard and tight end Richard Rodgers were returned to the practice squad Monday after being on the active roster for week 8. So just confounding usage, really. I mean, everybody thought Gainwell was teed up to capitalize and perform well when when Miles Sanders was healthy and was taking work from him, and then
Yeah.
they get ahead in this game, and Boston Scott and Jordan Howard steal the show.
Unbelievable. It didn't just cost me on this competition we do, but I also put Gainwell in on wherever I had him on redrafts, and it was just a bummer all around.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki was actually 4,900 this week, so Brent could have went back to that but chose not to. And the real bummer, I picked Dan Arnold, who cost 2,800 last week. Would have been good for 3 points in this dang competition. Got 14.8 points. 0.2 short of hitting the threshold I needed to cash in those 3 points. So that was my long shot. I nailed it. He just came up 2 yards short, Trevin. That one stings.
Yeah, you've been crying about it all day. You want a participation trophy or something?
Would have put it at 6-4. I would have had a chance to come back and get Brett. It sucks when you get it right, but fall just a little short.
Yeah, I feel terrible for you. I really wish you could have capitalized there.
I can really sense that from you. This week, Brent will probably get 3 points because he's going with Albert Okwuegbunam, who is 2,600 on DraftKings, and it looks like Noah Fant might miss this game, as we mentioned, with being on the COVID list if he can't get 2 negative tests. So Okwuegbunam came back last week from the IR, had a pretty decent game, cut into Noah Fant's work last week and his production. When you look at the box score, Trevin, Noah Fant actually ended up with 2 catches for 8 yards on 4 targets, and Okwuegbunam had 3 for 34 on 3 targets. So if Fant is out, I think that's a pretty solid pick from Brent, and knowing Brent's luck, he'll probably hit it.
If he gets that one, we're in a lot of trouble. He's really going to take a commanding lead here.
Yeah, no kidding. You also went with the tight end this week.
Yeah, I tried to look for something that's the 4,000 or under because I'm going to need to make up some ground even if Brent doesn't hit this one. So Hunter Henry, he's had a decent year. He's 4 times in the last 5 games he's been over the 10 points for fantasy points PPR, and with one of them being at the 19.5. So hopefully he can keep the strong streak going, get above that 15, and give me some damn points in this thing. After
going a little bold last week, I played it a little safer this week. I'm going with Jerry Judy, who cost $5,000, so it'll only be 1 point. But they play at Dallas this Sunday, and Dallas obviously is 25th against the opposing receivers in fantasy. So pretty good matchup for Judy. He came back last week after his injury, had 4 catches for 39 yards on 4 targets. So a decent start in his return against the Washington football team. Good for almost 8 fantasy points. So if he is able to either rack up a few more catches and yards this week and or get in the end zone, I think he has a pretty good chance to get 15 points against a bad Dallas defense in a game where Dak will probably be back and the Broncos will have to score a fair amount of points.
Yep, not a bad pick.
Thanks, Brent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Question of the week, Trevin. We alluded to it earlier, but the trade deadline passed on Tuesday. We didn't have a lot of big trades this at the deadline, but the biggest one was the trade of the Broncos made of oh gosh, help me out.
Yeah,
here.
Von Miller
to the Rams for a couple of day 2 picks, a second and a third, I think it was. So what'd you think of that deal?
Did you hear the story that's kind of come out about the Halloween party that for Von Miller? So it sounds like he was a little malcontent there because he was planning this huge Halloween blowout party that cost a lot of money, and he threw it. And then, leading up to the party, all the players were kind of getting sour on it because they have not a great year this year and not looking great going forward. So nobody was really super excited about this party anyway, and a lot of players dropped out after he had spent all this money on it. And he asked for some Venmo requests from some of the players to help him pay for this big party, and they were turning him down. So he's pissed off in the locker room, and that I don't think that led to this trade, but there was some malcontent going on in the locker room before the trade happened.
It's kind of bizarre excuse by the players considering they're 4-4. I mean, that's not a bad start for the Broncos, really, to be honest. But
sure.
I hadn't heard that story. That's a little bizarre.
Yeah, so add that to the other Broncos Halloween story from a couple years ago where, what's his name, that quarterback from Ole Miss that got drunk and went in the wrong apartment. So a lot of Halloween stuff going on in Broncos the last couple years. I can't think of his name. Swag Kelly.
Yeah, Chad Kelly.
Yeah. So
Uh,
anyway,
you get that Venmo request, are you paying it?
I think so. Whatever. Vaughn seems like kind of a weird guy. Like he seems like a guy that'd be super into Halloween and wanting to throw a huge party. But yeah, I'd probably be like, whatever, Vaughn. Thanks for throwing this party I didn't go to. No big deal.
No way I'm paying that.
No, you're telling him to shove it.
His career earnings, you want to guess?
What, like 80 million?
I'm trying to find it. It looks like his contract value was 114.5 million. So I don't know what I can't find what his career earnings are real quick. But either way, I mean, I think Vaughn has the cash to cover his own party if he wants to. Yeah, his current contract is 6 years, 114 million. If I'm a rookie or something on my rookie contract, be like, Vaughn, you can pay for this yourself.
You want to throw a big bash, you pay for it, Vaughn.
Especially if I didn't go to it. No way, man.
I don't know. It seems like one of those locker room things that you just do it to keep the locker room all happy.
I guess if it was, I don't know. It'd depend how much it was, I guess. Maybe.
Anyway, what do you think about the trade?
I found it finally. 144 million in career earnings so far.
Wow. He's a little older than I would have
32.
guessed. Yeah.
I love the trade for the Rams. I don't hate it for the Broncos, actually. You got the best years out of him. You don't have to pay the rest of this huge contract when he's probably not going to be performing. And
well, they are paying the full contract. He's
$9 or whatever they owe him for the rest of it.
Yeah, he's non-guaranteed after this year, and they're paying the remainder this year. But I know your point.
Yeah, so they aren't going to have to pay him for the age 33 through whatever he plays. And honestly, I know you're maybe a little more optimistic about their playoff chances than I was, but I think they're 4-4, but their wins are not impressive. I would have been pretty surprised if they actually made the playoffs. So I don't hate it for them. At least they got something back for him rather than just letting him walk as a free agent. And it sucks seeing a franchise player leave, but I mean, you get something for him and you're not stuck with a huge contract at the end of his career. That's not all bad.
I'm coming at this from a fan of a team that was dog shit for a long time. And I can tell you, looking at the December playoff pictures where it just, if your team's just in that hunt, then in December, that's just great when you're on a bad team. As you got a chance, it might be slim, but you're at least being considered for making the playoffs. It's a hell of a lot better than December. You're looking at draft projections for the next year and seeing what you're going to get with the second round pick you got from the Von Miller trade. But I know their point, and smart GMs will probably are looking towards the future more than that. But as a fan, there's not a lot of hope left when week 9 or week 8, they're trading away some of your best players.
Yeah, they're currently, I mean, there's a bunch of teams tied at 4-4, but they're currently the 11th seed and last in the division. Their 4 wins are over the Giants, the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Washington football team. The rest of their schedule is kind of tough, too. They have at the Cowboys, against the Eagles, and then they play 2 against the Chargers, 2 against the Chiefs. And they play the Raiders, the Bengals, and the Lions for their other 3. So maybe, and I hear what you're saying on it's fun to see.
Yeah, I'm not even saying it's a slim chance they're going to make the playoffs. But even if you're just 2 games out in December, then you're on that graphic and you can be excited and keep watching the games. But right now, they're saying there's not a lot of reason to watch the rest of those games this year because we're not playing to win this year.
Yeah. How many wins is Vaughn worth?
It's probably, he's not at the top of the game. He's past his prime, but probably only 1 or 2. But that's all you need to stay in that graphic.
I know. I think even 1 would be stretching just for any player, really. I mean,
yeah.
Especially when not the peak of their powers like he isn't anymore. But I think he could be a piece that certainly helps the Rams as they try to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, what about the Rams side? Do you like it? Did you say that?
Yeah, I like it for them. They're going all in to try to win it, and I love it whenever a team does that.
Yeah, I really like it. Same with that. It's just it's kind of a zig when everybody else is sagging, where everybody else is always trying to build draft picks and saying, because it's a lot easier to do that as a GM. You got to think of the guys just trying to keep their job too. You can always say, well, we lost this year, but guess what? I got 3 first-round picks next year, so just hang on, everybody.
Yeah.
and a lot of people are playing for their jobs. So there's one quote, I should remember who said it, Michael Lombardi maybe, that said there's only 6 teams that are actually trying to win the championship every year. The rest are guys trying to hold on to their jobs and playing for next year. And so if you're one of those teams, you're in it.
Yep. Who do you think those 6 are this year?
I don't know, but you are the big Dolphins guy, and look at all these picks the Dolphins are getting, and look at all this draft capital they're getting, and look at their ass now. It all comes down to actually hitting on those picks, and they're not hitting on them.
Oh, for sure. They've made a lot of smart decisions. It hasn't worked out this season, obviously, and
yeah, you can get all the picks you want it just doesn't matter if you're not hitting the right guys.
Yeah, I didn't love taking Jalen Waddle where they did and using an extra first to do it, but them's the breaks. All right, Trevin. But the question of the week is, what deal at the trade deadline that did not happen do you wish would have?
I don't know if I can pick just one. I was hoping a little more action and maybe just some quarterbacks moving around. The Washington football team seemed like they could use anybody, but they might not be trying to win this year anymore anyway. Wish the Saints would have brought in somebody. Mitch Trubisky's just sitting out there for anybody to take. And
you think the Bills would deal him? He's on a short-term deal, and they need insurance if Allen goes down.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's not like they're worried about losing an asset. They sign him for a 1-year deal in case Allen goes down.
Yeah.
Or even if he's down for a couple weeks, if you have a guy that has starting experience come in, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
That one would have been fun, but I didn't think it was very realistic.
Yeah, and that's I was getting to Mariota too, but that's kind of the same thing where if they are Raiders are trying for a playoff spot, you'd want a guy that has some experience coming in if Carr goes down. But probably could have got a little bit for Mariota. I was kind of surprised nobody traded for a receiver. Odell Beckham's dad, that Instagram post, it actually looks like he's going to end up getting cut anyway, but it looks like they should have moved him, and maybe Deshaun Jackson, it looks like he got cut too, but there's some teams out there that need some receivers with the Raiders now, but the Saints also.
Yeah, the one I was hoping for more than anything was I wanted the freaking Bears to trade Allen Robinson. He's just rotting away there on a stupid. He's on the franchise tag, so
that's the problem, though. You have to pay the salary cap would have to match, right? I'm not great with the NFL salary cap. I think you'd have to have room to trade for him, though.
I don't know why they couldn't do what the Broncos just did and pay most of the contract to get a better pick.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not using him at all in any meaningful way. They're 3-5, so they're not going anywhere. They're not winning that division. The Packers are 7-1. He's a really good receiver in the prime of his career that can make a difference for a team that's in contention this year, and he's not going to do them any good just playing the rest of his freaking franchise tag year on their losing team when Matt Nagy refuses to actually be competent. So that was the one I was just dying to see, was just free Allen Robinson, let him go somewhere and actually do something.
Yeah, that's a good call. There wasn't a lot of action.
No, kind of boring, but the Von Miller one was pretty good. And it's not like the baseball trade deadline where you get a ton of news usually. So
yeah.
All right, Trevin, let's do a quick beer check. I have New Glarus, 2 women.
Oh, wow. A little raunchy, a little naughty.
Yeah, just 2 women. Nothing raunchy or naughty about it, Trevin.
Okay.
They're just drinking some beers. One's got some wheat. The other one's got a beer.
Yeah, just a Wednesday hangout.
Yeah.
Is this another one from your father-in-law?
It is. This is a lager, so it's pretty solid. I'll go 7-2 on that one. I like that.
Very nice. Hang on one second. Which out of those ones you drank from there, which one's the best?
I don't know. I can't remember them all, honestly. That one's pretty good, though. Trevin's coming back now. He's got a full-size keg in his arms. He's putting it down. He's got his wife here to help him do a keg stand. Trevin? Yeah,
I told you I had a treat for you this week. My glow-in-the-dark fencing mug.
When are you going to tell me how much they're paying you to sponsor this?
I told you last week, thousands.
I have yet to. I'm going to send you a Venmo request like Von Miller.
I'll trade your ass and bring Brent back.
Brent's fees are higher than mine.
So yeah, I got a Yingling this week. I'm going with the Yingling Chesterfield Ale. Cool can.
This is the lighting you should use for every show.
Yeah, this doesn't look too bad, huh? This is just my monitors.
Looks professional.
Like one of those ring lights professional Instagram models use.
Yeah, you're well on your way to being an Instagram model.
Thanks,
and
man. That means a lot.
OnlyFans is back, allowing everybody to do what they want. So that's an option for you too. If this fencing company sponsorship isn't enough, you've got other options.
Yeah, get into OnlyFans.
He's even drinking it with the logo facing the camera. There's no way they're not paying you to do this.
They are. I told you that.
The only thing that makes me question it is you haven't said their name every time.
E4 Fencing Company.
There it is.
Omaha, Nebraska. If anybody in the Omaha, Lincoln area need a fence, that's who you should call.
What if I need a barbed wire fence to keep my cattle in? Will they help me with that?
Ooh, I don't know if he does that. I think he's mostly wood fences. Residential fences. But maybe.
He doesn't have the creosote covered posts.
No, probably not. I don't know if he has all the fencing equipment. That kind of fencing equipment.
He doesn't own a stretcher?
No, not a fence stretcher guy.
Need some staples for my fence.
For all your cattle? You're all hat, no cattle.
Pretty much. Did you rate your Yingling? What do you got?
I like this one a lot. We'll do 8.5.
8.5. That's a pretty solid score.
Yeah, I like this one.
There you have it, folks. Well, thanks for being part of the Fantasy Players Club, everybody. We'll have a new episode for you next week that'll hopefully be a little more upbeat if the NFL gives us some positive things to talk about in Week 9. We'll live stream that for you on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Until then, on behalf of Trevin Cremosta, this is Levi Valentine wishing you good luck in Week 9.
See ya.
All right. You got an after-show question that you came up with?
You got to be excited about
it. I don't know where this discussion's going.
At what age should your kids be able to beat you up, do you think? Like, really, if it's an all-out brawl, when should they be able to beat you up? Because at some point, you got to think of your own strength as far as you want to be stronger than other people, but you also want your kids to be be better than you. So when are they going to kick your ass, Levi?
Well, I was 27 when I had my first kid. So if they were two boys, 27 and 28 was I hadn't had my birthday yet. So so your question on here was 20 was your number that you threw out there, which would put me at 47 or 48. That feels about right, probably. If they're anything like me in high school, I was pretty skinny and not very strong. So, but if they lift weights, if they play sports like I didn't and lift weights, they might be able to get that a couple of years sooner. But 20 to 25-ish, probably before 25. I'd say by the time you get out of college, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you'd still have some dad strength to you when they're in high school. Even if they're lifting weights, I think they're going to be pretty skinny. I think you'd still be able to take them one at a time. What age do you think they're going to be when they can take you coming at you at the same time?
Oh, man. They're both really high percentiles for height and weight. So yeah. If that keeps up, I'd say maybe by the time they're both teenagers. I don't know. If it's an all-out brawl, like where they can use weapons and stuff.
No. Just fists.
I'd say
like MMA rules. You can't. No shoes.
I don't know. Like they're a couple years apart, so
like 13 and 11. You think they can take you?
I think they both maybe like 15 and 13, something like that.
Not to the death, but you're trying to make each other tap out.
Yeah. It's also hard when there's two of them because like one just punches you in the back of the head and.
That makes it harder. You're thinking like 10 and 8?
You're toast. I don't think they could hit you hard enough at that age.
Yeah.
And they'd be pretty short still, so they'd have a hard time getting to your face.
I think the nuts is what you got to be more worried about.
Well, yeah. What's
But,
your
yeah,
answer?
we can say you can't do that. Can't do nut shots. Well, I'm having a girl, so hopefully never until maybe
You're
maybe when
85 years old.
85 in a wheelchair or something. She just beats the shit out of me, and she's like 50.
I
That'd be
saw a
kinda
video
funny to
this
see.
week where it was like a 77-year-old guy, and somebody tried to mug him, like some younger person, and he
Oh, I
squared up
saw that.
and
It
threw a
was
couple punches and scared him off.
in Britain.
Yeah.
The UK.
They're different over there.
They are different over there.
So you don't want your daughter to basically ever be able to beat you up.
Oh, I'd welcome it. If we want to fight once a year until she proves that she can do it.
I
just
don't know
think
if that's allowed. I think there might be some laws against that. Once a year, my kid's gonna fight me. Just to see.
We're gonna see who taps out who. Fighting my toddler for the next 8 years or whatever. Once a year.
Yeah, I think that's frowned upon.
We'll see. I'm just a pretty big guy. It's gonna be hard for any high school girl to take me down, but maybe my own can get me.
What would your answer be if you had a boy?
Oh, I could have probably kicked the hell out of my dad when I was 12. So,
yeah,
just
right.
kidding. If Billy's listening, no, I don't know. Probably.
Doesn't he run a lot? He probably just would have ran away from you.
No,
he
got quit
tired.
running.
No.
He quit running.
Was he running when you were 12?
No.
No. Well, he's in phenomenal shape. So whatever you're doing, Billy, keep it up.
His big running years was like ages 20 to 25 for me. So whatever that would make him. But he had like a 5-year stretch where he's running a shitload.
Gotcha. So does he work out now?
I think he runs a little bit sometimes, but not like he was. He's still he doesn't eat a whole lot, so he's still in good shape, but he's just not in super runner shape like he was for a while.
Gotcha. I remember when I got to be taller than my dad. Then he wasn't nearly as intimidating, but he was a farmer, so he definitely still could have beat me up.
Yeah, he's usually wrestling cows. But does he care about skinny high school Levi coming at him?
Yeah, so it wasn't as intimidating, but I definitely still would have lost. So I don't know. Like now, I could definitely take him, I think. But I don't know what your answer is for what age you think you could have taken your dad. I know it's not 12 or whatever you said.
No, I got pretty tall towards the end of high school, which would have helped with some reach. But he definitely had me on dad's strength. So I would bet those two things kind of leveled off. Maybe when I was 20 to 22, when I started putting some weight on, and maybe it would have given me an advantage if our weights were similar and I was 5 inches taller.
Yeah. That's when he was running a lot too, you said. So I was going to give you an edge for endurance, but since you're playing rec basketball a lot, but it sounds like you might have been pretty similar at that point.
Yeah, pretty good in same endurance, I think. But if it's just a ring, he can't run from me. I'd grab him.
So what's your answer for your kid? What age do you want him if it was a boy?
Oh, never. No, I'm just kidding. Probably about the same.
20 to 25?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Did have a funny conversation with my wife. What age we're making bets on what age my daughter would pass her on height.
What was
my
the
wife's
answer?
about 5'4", 5'5". She's like, our daughter's not gonna be tall. I was like, okay, but my guess is 12.
That's pretty young.
Girls start shooting up a little earlier, I think.
That's true. I don't know. That'll be interesting. Do you have a preference on whether she's tall or short?
I'd like her to be tall. I think it's more fun being tall. So just for her own sake. I don't know. It's probably a little different for girls, I guess. 6'1" girl is looked at a little different, I think.
Yeah.
But if she's going to be interested in sports, it'd be nice to be tall, probably.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. I figured out where dad's strength comes from, by the way.
Lifting them up all the time or what?
Yeah, just carry it. You'll see over the next couple of years. You just lift them up and carry it. Well, for the first, till they're walking and stuff. Even after they walk, you're carrying them a lot when you go places. Just arms, just from carrying them, get pretty strong.
I can see you got those guns.
Well, and then the other thing is, the thing that really gets you is like if you have them in a car seat at the beginning, that's another 20 or 30 pounds depending on your car seat, and you're just carrying that plus the baby inside, and they're in the car seat for the first, I don't know, 6 months to a year depending on. So like that, I think, and then after that, you're just lifting them up a lot and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from. That's what I learned.
Blows your back out too?
Not yet. Probably. You're getting a little later start, so you might have that problem sooner than I did in the child's life.
Yeah. Wouldn't doubt it. Me and Brent were both had bad backs for that one episode.
Yeah. Real troopers you guys are.
Yeah. Warriors.
All right. We'll see you next week, everybody.
I can't wait for your kids to kick your ass.
I'm going to send them after you.
No. I don't want this giant kid chasing me around.
They'll just headbutt you. They have like 99th percentile heads. All right. See you, everybody.